Hello and welcome back to TIM-DND. Today I'm going to talk about a game that I've got coming up with some colleagues from work who are total new players to the game of Dungeons & Dragons. The game is going to be myself and I believe two, maybe three people from work. None of them have had any experience either in role-playing games in general or in Dungeons & Dragons. So this video is going to be talking about how I'm aiming to make the process easy, fun, a way of them learning the game somewhat, and also just introducing them to the hobby in general, and hopefully engaging them in the future. I won't reveal too much about what I've got planned in the adventure. I will probably do another video about that after the game, because I don't want them to get some sneak peeks. So let's talk about it. So this game is a one-shot. It's 4 hours of time where I'm going to try and introduce the players to Dungeons & Dragons, and I'm going to try and get them excited about it. They have no idea about the fantasy realm, what creatures are in it, what a dwarf is like in Dungeons & Dragons, what an elf is like. All those concepts, they may have some aspects from obviously media and different pop culture type things, but for the actual game itself, they're newbies. They don't know. So rather than try and create characters with them and have them create their own, I'm using first level characters because I don't want to swamp them with loads of different abilities. Rather than create those characters with them, I've created 12 human characters. Human because, let's face it, they know what a human is. They hopefully are one. So yeah, human characters. So they haven't got to think about how a dwarf would act, how an elf would act, how a gnome would act, any of that stuff. Just the human. And I've created 12, one of each of the basic types of character in the Player's Handbook, which is the 2014 edition, because I haven't moved into 2024 and at the moment have no intention of doing so. So yeah, 12 characters. When they come round, I will ask them, do you want to be a caster? Do you want to be a melee character? Divide that into, so you've got 6 characters to choose from now. Then I will ask a question of the person who's picked the caster. Do you want to be able to heal? That divides it into 2 groups of 3. So on and so forth until I narrow down what sort of character they're going to pick. Then I will hand them a character sheet. Now, as anyone knows who plays the game, character sheets, oh, that doesn't look very good on the screen, I'm sure, but that is a character sheet. It looks very blank to me. Character sheets are incredibly overwhelming. They have so much information on them. There's loads of numbers. There's loads of little boxes of different shapes. If you're new to the game, you're going to look at that and freeze with the idea of what the hell do I do with this piece of paper. So the only thing I've left blank on there for them is their character's name, so they can work that out in whatever way they choose for it. I'll give them a little bit of a hint of not picking a stupid name which they have to then introduce themselves as, but they're free to choose their name. Then, to make life easier for me, playing with people who don't know how to use the character sheet, and for them, obviously, I've highlighted the character sheets in certain specific ways. So for the ability scores, the saving throws, and the skills, I've highlighted that whole section with a green highlighter around those boxes. So when they're looking for, when I say, "Oh, roll a skill check," I can say, if you look at the green section on that, And they can find the skill section in the green section fairly easily, write their way down, find out what that skill check is going to be. If they are in combat, I've highlighted that whole section with the armor class, speed, initiative at the top, and all the weapons that they own and how many hit points they have left in orange, so I can point out the orange section for that. The skills bit, the features and traits section, I've highlighted around that in pink. And also I've done the same thing with their proficiencies and languages. So there's two pink boxes, but one's on the left, one's on the right. It's the bigger box, the smaller box. It's easy for me to point them out into the right direction for those. When they've picked their character, I will very quickly go through some of their little abilities, what they're good at, what they're bad at. I'm not going to go into massive detail. It's very tempting to do that when you know the game and you're talking to someone who doesn't. The trouble is, of course, the more details you go into, the more complicated it's going to get. When they come here, they're not even going to know the difference between a D20 and a D6 unless I explain it to them. So there's a lot going on. I don't want to overwhelm them. So I'm just going to say, so I've got a character sheet on top here, which is a bard. I'm going to say this character's got a reasonable dexterity. They're not very strong. They're very charismatic. All of their spells revolve around charisma, so that's good. And they're pretty good at being nimble and jumping and flipping and attacking with their rapier. That's the basics for that. And then I will talk about bardic inspiration. And because that's one of their main things, and because it's a bonus action to do, all the bonus actions in the features and traits, or anywhere else on the character sheet for that matter, I've highlighted in yellow, just to pull out bonus actions for them when they're glancing at this whole sheet. So I'll talk a little bit to this character about bardic inspiration and spellcasting, but I will do it very briefly. On the subject of spellcasters, I've got some other tools available for them as well, which I'll talk about in a moment. But basically, just setting things out easily, explaining what the character is. So in the case of the bard, you casting magic with music, essentially. I know some people like to do bards with art and other things. This is their first game. I'm not going to mess things up a bit too much. I just want it to be very basic, as understandable as possible. If they want to go for the really iconic sort of characters, much like the first season of Critical Role, where all the characters are very specifically druid, thief, whatever, that's fine, as long as they can get to grips with the character a bit easier. That's great. So that's characters. I've written them very basic. I'll introduce them to the characters based on the sort of character they want to play from the little questions I'm going to throw out there, and we'll go from there. I'm going to aim for one person to be a martial character and one person to be a caster at the very least, because that way both of them, or hopefully three of them, will get to see either type of character in the game. But if both of them really want to be casting spells, I'm not going to limit that too much. I'll work with that. So that's characters. Let's move on. In my spare time, I've been creating some tools to go along with this particular game. Although, to be honest, a lot of the tools I've been making will be useful for future adventures as well. The main thing I've been working on is tools for the spellcasters, because I know the spells are going to get a lot more complicated than the melee characters, where they're literally running in and hitting things with swords. Spellcasters tend to have a lot more options available to them, certainly at first levels, earlier levels, and that can be quite overwhelming. So I've created cards for all of the spells. I know you can buy these. I wasn't planning on buying spell cards for every single character that I've created there. That would be costly, and I probably wouldn't ever use them again. But for this game, I had some card around. I literally cut it into normal playing card size pieces. I've done them for each of the spellcasters there. I've used handwritten wording on it, and just summarized what the spell does, what the range is, and everything, and given the gist based on what's in the book, rather than having to go into the nitty gritty details as much as possible. Annoyingly, some of the more basic spells in the game, like Thaumaturgy or Prestidigitation, have a lot more wordiness than would fit on these cards, so I've had to minimize that. But I think for a one-shot game, for players who aren't used to the game, and for the activities that will happen in this particular one-shot I've designed, I don't think they're going to need all of the things from those sorts of spells. And I think if they had access to all of those things, they probably wouldn't use them anyway. So very much reducing of the information overload is what I'm going for here. I have highlighted the cantrips around, I don't know if you can see, around the border of these cards and on the top. I've highlighted the cantrips in green. I've highlighted bonus actions in yellow, and what was it? Ritual spells I've highlighted in orange. Just to be clear, so that the players will know they can use the cantrips whenever they want. They haven't got restrictions on how many times. The normal spells, they know they can cast only so many times. But the ritual spells, obviously, they will be able to cast as a ritual without using the spell slot. So they're sort of an extra bonus, but obviously not when they're in the middle of combat or something like that. So these things are basic, easy things that I can go over at the beginning of the game and make it a little bit easier for them. And then obviously they've got the cards and they can lay them out how they want to help them remember as the game goes on. I've also come up with using the same cards, which I had a few left over, not many, because there's a surprising number of spells involved in first level characters when you're creating 6 of them who can do spells. But with some of the cards that were left over when I created those, I've done an action and bonus action card, which I'll give to the players. And I think I'm going to do another one of those, which is for movement, including jumping, flipping, falling, that sort of thing. And I may actually do one for reactions as well, just to go over that, but I'm not sure about that. Again, I don't want to, it's difficult. I don't want to limit people by thinking, oh, these are the only things I can do on this card, but I do want to give them an idea of some of the things they can do. So these are that. I think it's very important for new players that especially, and in a role-playing game in general, that players realise that the rules don't reduce what they can do. They are guidelines for the Dungeon Master to come up with rules when the players come up with something which isn't in the rules. I think that's the main point of role-playing games above computer games. There aren't those restrictions there. There isn't that area of wall which you can't climb up because the computer game hasn't had it designed so you can climb up it. Everything is accessible, and everything is doable to a point. Obviously, if you want to do a 3 times somersault over a very big gaping gorge, there's a high chance that that's going to fail. In fact, there's possible a chance that it's never going to succeed. But if that's what you decide that you want to do, there's a rule there which enables the dungeon master to work something out. Um, the important thing is that the players are able to realise that they can have fun, make things up on the fly, and the dungeon master is capable of using those ideas and turning them into what happens in the game. The final thing, and perhaps the most important, that I've tried to set up and ready for this game is a sense of atmosphere. I'm lucky my games room is designed specifically around Dungeons and Dragons. I've got a nice table. I've got candles and things set up around the area. The room has been decorated to look a bit like a dungeon or an old tavern or whatever. Um, it's designed for the purpose. Um, I've set up my laptop with music, which will play during the game, which will change when there's combat. I can add in weather effects and things like that if need be. I've got a lot of things set up specifically to help me to make the game feel a lot more special than a few pieces of paper and a few dice. If you haven't got this set up and you're planning something like this, do the best you can with what you have. If you can dim the lights somewhat and use candlelight, that's great. Obviously, you have to bear in mind that you also need to be able to see the sheets you're writing on and the dice you're rolling. So there's a limit to how much you can go with no light and candles. But even if it's just lighting a few scented candles in a room in daylight, then that adds to something of what you're doing. If you can find a few tracks on YouTube or whatever to play while you're playing your game, again, it adds to the atmosphere. Most people have access to this sort of thing on their phone, on a laptop, or a tablet device, or whatever. All of this helps. It brings the players who are new and not sure what to expect into what the game is. So it's helping them to immerse themselves in the story you're telling, or in the game that you're playing. The combat music, for instance, just really does make them realise that this is something different to what they've been doing. They're not just travelling through the woods anymore. Now there's some danger involved. Anything like that you can bring into a game really helps set the scene, helps let the players know roughly what's going on, and it makes it more of an experience. And at the end of the day, what I'm aiming for with this sort of a game is to introduce people to the game. Hopefully, they'll love it. Hopefully, they're going to really enjoy the experience and tell people about it. And even if they don't want to play again themselves, the people they tell might want to have a go. This helps me. It means I get to play with lots of people. I get to play the game with lots. I get to meet loads of new people who might be interested. It spreads the hobby, and that can only be a good thing. I've explained to the people who are going to join me on this particular game that I believe it helps social interaction, it helps team building, and it helps just general camaraderie and thinking around problems in a different way. All of that is 100% true, but if I'm honest, it's also a way of encouraging people to play a game with me. 100% honesty out there on the floor there. I love this game. I want to play with as many people as possible. I want to encourage the community, and I want to engage people as much as possible. So the best way to do that, as far as I'm concerned, is to make it feel more than just someone with a few books and some other people with some pieces of paper. Make it as close, as comfortable as possible. Enjoy yourself. Make sure they're enjoying themselves. And engage them as much as possible with the world you've created. Having said that, don't make it so So intense that they think that they're starting to join a cult. There's no point inviting new players into a game and greeting them at the door to your house in like some big black robe or something with a hood up, trying to act all sinister. That's not going to help them engage with you. It's just going to freak them out, and they're going to run for the hills. Um, Apart from all the things that I do, I'm still a normal person, and I still have a normal sense of humour. And part of the game is meant to be having fun and having a laugh. So you have to be open to people finding things amusing, people um, laughing at some of the stuff that you've set up. It's fine. It is a laugh. It is fun. It's intended to be so. So don't take yourself so seriously that you alienate everyone who's playing the game with you. Um, I think that's everything that I want to talk about in this video. As I said, after the game, I'm going to do another video. I'm going to talk about what the adventure was like, and I'm going to talk about how it went, and if all the things that I've prepared worked how I wanted them to work, or totally failed. Hopefully, the former. We will talk about that on my next video. I'll see you soon, guys, and hopefully this inspired some of you to invite people who've never played before to join a game with you. I'll catch you later.